Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our women's webinar. Her journey, her influence, growing, leading, and making an impact. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. My name is Marelize de Jongh, and I'm Business Development Manager and Principal Consultant at Project Link, and I'm very excited to be facilitating our conversation this evening. In my career, I've seen how much we grow through experiences we have, the people we work with, especially the challenges we face, and also the opportunities we choose to take. And I think that's especially true for women working in industries where we are still often in the minority. You learn a lot as you go, and you learn when to speak up, when to trust yourself, when to change direction, and sometimes when to simply just put your head down and keep going. And tonight is really about those journeys. We want to move beyond the job titles and the fancy CVs and have an open and honest conversation about those experiences that shape us and how we grow through the different stages of our lives and careers, and how our definition of success changes over time, and ultimately the influence and the impact that we can make around, or the impact that we can have on the people around us. I'm very privileged to be joined by three accomplished women this evening. Lili Nupen and Samantha Reyneke from NSDV Law, and Margarita Barcia from N8. And thank you so much, ladies, for joining us and for being willing to share your experiences with us. Before we get into the conversation, I'm going to give each of you a chance to briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and perhaps more importantly, tell us something about yourself that we won't necessarily see on a LinkedIn profile. Lili, let's start with you.
Thanks very much, Marelize. I was just saying, actually, before we came online, how incredibly excited I am for this conversation, because it is a real conversation. So I am Lili Nupen. I am the co-founder and head of NSDV Law. We are a law firm that basically specializes in all areas of law, but specifically focused on the mining industry, the construction industry, and the renewable energy industry. So we talk about male dominated. I've got Sam Reyneke with me. She's a director in the construction department, construction law department, and I'm head of the mining and environmental law department. Something about me that I don't think people on LinkedIn know, but I am a mother of two very little kiddies. And a very proud mum, and I've spent a long time trying to create that balance and bring that balance. And I know everyone talks about balance and trying to find it, but it really has been one of my areas where I've wanted to try and reach that kind of synergy between loving my work as much as I love my family. So there, and also just to let you all know, please forgive me if my internet is slightly sketchy. I am at site in the middle of the Karoo. So if I do happen to freeze a little bit, please just give me a few minutes to get back online.
Thank you so much, Lili. Sam, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. Thank you that I can be part of today. It's very exciting, like Lil says, and it's such a great opportunity just to be here and have this discussion. So I'm Samantha Reyneke. I am a director at NSDV Law, where I specialize in construction, dispute resolution, and alternative dispute resolution. And very interesting, I don't think my career would have been where I am today. I don't think I'd still be in law if it wasn't for Lili and having a cup of coffee with her 7 years ago. So I'm very grateful for where I am and for what I get to do each day. I'm also a mama of two little girls, Aria and Talia. They're 7 and 9 years old. And what you certainly won't see on LinkedIn is that I'm very recently, as of Saturday, a first-time dog mom too. So I have a teeny tiny little 10-week-old miniature cross between a mini Aussie Doodle and a Labradoodle puppy called Stanley. So if you hear a barking in the background, that's just him vying for my attention.
Shame, yeah, it's about being a newborn mom all over again.
Exactly.
Thanks, Sam. And finally, Margarita.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good, I guess it's good evening by now. I'm Margarita Barcia. I'm from Innate, and I am a solution engineer and also the pre-sales assistant manager of the EMEA region. And that is how I know Marlies, because they are our partners in the SSA. And yeah, what we do, Innate, we are basically a construction project controls platform where we help all different types of clients. So, owners, contractors, engineering companies, basically help them from the A to Z of construction, that whole project life cycle, by basically giving them software that, could help all the different business processes that they do day to day. So I'm also coming from the construction industry. So I'm an architect, and now in kind of that, construction software world. So I'm also the only one that is not currently in South Africa. I'm located in the Netherlands. So I live in Rotterdam. And I've now been living in the Netherlands for 7 years. I'm originally from the Philippines. So yeah, moved my life halfway across the world. And I think that's something that people wouldn't know from reading my LinkedIn profile, is that I am a marathon runner, and I'm currently training for my 3rd marathon. So yeah, just exciting things. I'll be running the Barcelona Marathon. Unfortunately, no dog for me. Like Sam, but yeah, so that's it. And I'm very excited to be here as well. Thank you, Marlies, and excited to get to hear, all of the conversation from the other ladies, and also questions that people might have.
Awesome, thanks, Margarita. Maybe a bit about myself. I've been with Project Link for 15 years. I started out as a graduate, and I think I would also, the same as you, Sam, not be where I am today if it wasn't for the team at Project Link. They have assisted me in my career, and it has evolved into a role that is really so rewarding. I love people, and that is what I get to do every day, is to work with people, and getting new business is a bonus. But I really enjoy it. I'm also a mom of 2 kids, a boy 6, and a girl 4, going on 16. And also it's really rewarding. My work is really rewarding, but nothing is as rewarding as being their mom. But also nothing is also as challenging as being their mom. But yeah. But yeah, let's get to it. I want to ask if there's any questions throughout the session. You're welcome to post it in the chat, and at the end of the session, we'll go through all the questions if there are any. I wanted to start at the beginning. So, because when we look at successful people today, we often only see where they are now. We don't necessarily see all the experiences, the decisions that was made or not, sometimes difficult moments that helped shape us along the way. Lili, I want to start with you. Looking back over your journey, what experience do you think has shaped you the most, either personally or professionally?
So, Marlies, I don't think there's actually just been one specific experience. I think it really has been my journey in general. I come from a family with an incredibly strong mum who herself was an entrepreneur, and herself is still a very, very strong businesswoman. And I think that basically watching her, I've kind of, it's it's not, it's the norm for me. It feels like it's kind of been, that's what women do. And it was, I think, far more difficult for her back in the day. She was also very involved in politics, etc. So, and I think, so very, very difficult for her. But so just seeing that and having that context, I always knew, I actually was thinking of being an actress and then realized that maybe not in South Africa. So I thought, what was the next best thing? And that was law. You kind of act as well, by the way. So I started as a corporate commercial lawyer. I then managed to do my MBA. I actually really wanted to be in South Africa. So I thought, well, at that time, it was in 2010, how can I, as a woman, be relevant in South Africa? How can I mirror and work kind of alongside what my mum did and does in the South African context? And I looked around and I realized actually mining. There are so few, and still to this, especially then, but still to this day, there are so few women lawyers in the mining space. And it baffles me because it really is, it's the most incredible area and arena to be in. Yes, and we'll get through it. Obviously, during our discussion today, there are many challenges. But I think just realizing that I really did want to stand up and stand out and be relevant as a woman in South Africa and in the African context, I made that decision and I came back, and I was very, very lucky to find a brand new firm starting off from the ground. I was the first junior there, and they decided that they wanted to focus on the mining space. And from there, things catapulted. So I think, you talk about one specific experience. It isn't. It's an accumulation of experiences, an accumulation of doors opening, an accumulation of me trying to figure out my life as I go along, and having a very strong role model in my mum.
If you can have it all over, would you do it the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. I would do it slightly differently in terms of approach, I think. And I think some significant learnings about how I approach the industry as a woman. But I think that comes with experience and kind of confidence as well at the end of the day. But I absolutely am beyond happy about where I am right now.
It's awesome. Thanks, Lili. Sam, was there a particular moment or opportunity or even a setback that changed the direction of your career for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually a setback before my career even started. I had this beautifully mapped out career plan. From the age of 3, I was convinced I'm going to be a physiotherapist. And very, very shocking, I never got admitted or never got the admission letter. And even when I got the rejection as a physio, I was like, how can they not see my passion? How can they not feel this through the paper? And I was quite disheartened. And for me, law was actually a second choice. But if it hadn't been for law, what I didn't know is I would end up sitting next to my future husband while we were studying. And years later, we would connect. And I wouldn't be here today if that hadn't happened. So it's quite amazing for me to see how things don't always go the way you plan it. And even when I started off with the Competition Commission. I was there for a year, did the graduate trainee program. I loved it. I decided to specialize in construction competition law. I joined Barcia, which is now Fasken, and I was there for about 9.5 years. And I was doing competition law, but I actually didn't enjoy it. It was just a tick box exercise, and it became a bit boring. And fortuitously, I landed one of our country's biggest construction law disputes. I had no idea what I was doing, but I faked it till I made it. And a couple of years later, we had a very fortuitous cup of tea through a mutual friend that introduced me to Lili and to Cameron. And what started out as a handshake and a cup of tea ended up in a hug and a job offer. And 7 years later, here we are. And I really discovered my love for law. I feel like at NSDV, something just clicked for me. And I realized that it's not just law, but you can do law and people. And it's just not just law and people, but you can do things that you love with people who you love doing it with. And I just discovered a new avenue of law. And I'm really grateful because where I practice, I get to do everything that I enjoy. I get to be a full-time working mom. I get the grace to plan all our parties and entertainment, but still practice law. I get the freedom to sit on the board at the Association of Arbitrators, and I've discovered a love for alternative dispute resolution. And as a result of that, we've brought more of that into our practice at work. So for me, it really was one pivotal moment, which was heartbreaking for me. And I thought it ended my career before it even started. And also, as an aside, just on that, what I didn't really realize is my dad is a draftsman, and I actually have memories of being 3 years old and sitting with him with those big green drawing boards, and he would draw all these intricate drawings. And I'd sit there and I'd do these little squiggly drawings and I'd sit on his lap. But I never realized and appreciated the significance of the fact that I'd actually end up going into construction law and engineering law. And although I came into it in a bit of a different way, I think I did actually end up following in his footsteps. And I feel like a part of him lives on in me and will live on in me in my years to come.
Yeah, little did you know that your path, your job paths will cross in the future. That's actually that's an amazing story. And it also shows that um, things tend to work out the way they should, and you'll end up where you're supposed to be in the end.
Exactly. You just need to trust the process.
Exactly. Margarita, for you, your career you're an architect and now you're in software. So it's taken you into quite a different professional environment than where you started. What experiences had the greatest influence on the person and professional you are today?
Yeah, I think like, initially, if you asked me that, I would say like, oh, it was taking my master's. But if I kind of take a step back, I realized that very early on, it's also, that foundation of family. I grew up in a family of architects and construction engineers, let's just call them that. And you kind of have this image of, where your career needs to go and how it, step by step, it's very linear, right? And I was also the only woman in my family that got into the industry. So it was always kind of this challenge of, okay, how am I going to improve and do better than the what's it called, like then the people before me? First it's my dad and then it was my grandfather. So there's that kind of that pressure, but there's also that challenge, like, I'm a woman, what am I going to do differently? And so I think, yeah, being around that environment kind of made me a little bit comfortable, but it also gave me a set of people who were on my side, because I was comfortable, because I knew, hey, my dad comes from here, and if he says I can do it, I probably can. And you kind of get that insider information. But I think that if I look back and I focus on one experience, it would definitely be taking my master's at 29. So I don't know how it is in South Africa, but in Europe, taking your master's at 29 is very old. And for me, I had a career in the Philippines. I owned my own company, and I kind of left all of that and took a pause. And I said, I'm taking my master's, and I got into the University of Delft, which is in the Netherlands, which is really a great school. I think it's top 3 in the world. But it was, diving into that and saying, okay, I'm taking a pause from what I should be doing to take a gamble with something that is kind of unknown. And that unknownness, gave me this, I like really changed the way I thought about opportunities. It exposed me to people who did not have linear paths of their profession. It exposed me to people who were architects that were doing real estate development, architects who were in software, more tech stuff, also architects who were more in policy. And it kind of opened my eyes to, what is the possible? You don't have to be a single, you're an engineer, you're an architect, but that doesn't mean you only have to fit in this box. there are so many other, you know, great opportunities out there. And I think I would have, that's the only way that I could have experienced it. And, you know, it's not to say like, oh, you need to have a master's, but it's just putting yourself in situations where you can see people who have done things a bit different. And that gives you this kind of, you know, opens your eyes. And for me, that's super exciting. And I feel like that's really, you know, quite a pivotal moment in, you know, how my career turned out. So yeah, so there, I think. So that's my answer.
So do you think it would have been a different path from there on if you did your master's in at another university, possibly in another country? Do you think it would have been different, or do you think the impact would have been similar?
I think the impact would have been similar. Like, you know, there's this whole, you know, questioning now about, you know, education and how much people are paying for education. And people are now saying, you know, what you're learning in a school is not really that valuable. It's more about the connections that you make, but it's also a specific way of thinking. It's
Yeah.
questioning, you know, it's questioning what's there, questioning what is being fed to you, being able to have those discussions. And I feel that you could really do that anywhere. You don't have to go to a, you know, a fancy school or to another country. It's just exposure. So yeah, I think it would have been somewhat different. Maybe I would have been living in another country, but yeah, same.
You probably would have ended up the same in the same place. One of the things I think many women can relate to is having a voice. And actually feeling confident enough to use it is not always the same thing. Sometimes you find yourself in a room where you're either younger than the rest, or less experienced, or possibly the only woman, or simply surrounded by big and strong personalities. Samantha, maybe if I can ask you, has speaking up always come naturally to you, or is it using your voice something that you had to learn over your career?
So that's an interesting one. I think I've always had a voice, and I don't think finding it was the hard part. I think learning to trust it was the harder part. The rooms that I find myself in construction and engineering, and also some of our mining clients, are very male-dominated industries. Today, for example, I sat in a room where it's the owner of the mining firm, it's the COO is a male, the CEO is a male, the CFO is a male. And you walk into these meetings and hearings and boardrooms, and you're either one of the very few women, or sometimes you're the only woman in the room. I mean, how many times haven't all of us been asked, will you take the notes, or can you pass the tea, or will you take the lunch order? And initially, it is a knee-jerk reaction. We do take offense, but then we do it, and we do it graciously, and then we still let our voice be heard when there's something to be said. So I think earlier in my career, it was quite hard because I felt I first had to prove that I deserved to have a seat at the table before I'd earned the right to speak with the authority. But over time, I've learned something a lot more important. I've learned that I don't have to have the louder voice to be heard. I just have to become surer of my voice. And my strength isn't necessarily in sounding like all the men in the room, but it's rather in sounding like myself. And there's something so empowering in that. I feel like if you have something to say, you're at the table, so you've got a reason to say it.
Can I say something?
What you said.
Also,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just gonna inject, like, I find that 100%, and I 100% agree. My voice will never be the same as a male voice, and I think a lot of the times we're taught that you need to act this way, you need to sound this way. It's like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I have my own strategy. So it's so refreshing to hear, like, I'm not the only one that, you know, thinks that.
Yeah. And I've seen that, just to add on to that.
Yeah.
To add on to that, sometimes they expect you to be a bulldog or a bull terrier, or there's a different way of doing it. But I've realized you really can still get the same results, if not a better result, by acting kindly and treating people like they are people, and speaking to their emotions rather to the hectic craziness that's going on around us. you get a lot more done. What do they say? You attract more bees with honey.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think go for it, Lily.
Sam's 100% right. Sorry to interrupt, but she's right. That's our whole approach at NSTV. We were always so, I think everybody probably around this or on this Teams link has had imposter syndrome at some stage. In fact, I still think I have imposter syndrome. I have been a mining lawyer for 20 years. I started my own law firm with 2 partners. We've grown it from 3 of us to 35 of us in 7 years. And I still question myself. I still walk into that room. Yesterday, I walked into a room of advocates and my client, and you still are kind of, it's still this feeling of a flip, am I going to say the right thing? Am I in the right place? Am I going to embarrass myself? Do I speak? Do I not speak? Another example is walking into my own boardroom with 12 miners or people from a mining company on the one side, and another like 4 from another mining company on the other side. And we were called to mediate a situation, and they didn't know who. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, sorry. You didn't know. They didn't know who Nupen was. I'm Nupen. I was referred to as Nupen. So they didn't know who Nupen was. So my junior, who I think I'm in my 40s, my junior is probably in his early 20s, and he walks in, and then I walk in, and they have the head of the table, and they allow him, and they say, come and sit at the head of the table. And he was highly embarrassed, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to move, and I just walked in, sat down, he sat down, whatever. And he wouldn't let me. I had to sit at the head. But anyway, everyone kind of looks sideways, like, and then you start speaking. And listen, Sam is right. You fake it till you make it. And with experience, and with time, and with confidence. And once you find your authenticity, really, you find who you are, how you believe things should be said. I mean, all of us and everybody who is in a profession, they're there for a reason. It's not, they've created, they've passed the test of getting the knowledge. It's now about how you present yourself, and present yourself as you. That is my biggest ticket items. Be authentic. And then people will start to listen. I mean, it's still hard, but people will start to listen.
I love that. I think the most important thing for me in any consulting or any environment actually is just to be yourself. To be authentic is the most important aspect of day to day, because you don't have to be the loudest to be heard. And also you have to trust your gut. So if your gut tells you now's the time to speak up, you have to speak up. I think there were so many times in my life where I thought to myself, oh, you need to say something. And then I ended up not saying something because I was either the youngest or the only woman or whatever reason. And then afterwards I thought to myself, oh, you had that opportunity to just say something and be heard, but you didn't. So I started quite late in my life to actually learn to trust my gut. Sometimes I do, however, say stuff where I thought afterwards, oh, that wasn't the right tone or voice. So that does happen as well. But I think, trust your gut and just be authentic. I think that's really important. So, Margaret,
can I add? Sorry, can I add one thing quickly, just to say, and a hint and a tip to anybody out there who is struggling with it. It's not half the time. Somebody said this to me, that you probably know more than everybody else in the room, but it's the way that you say it. So
Yeah.
don't be too stressed out about what you're saying. Obviously, you've got to give the right advice, and especially as a lawyer or whatever, and don't just speak for the sake of speaking. But when it is the right time to speak, say it with conviction, say it with confidence, even if you are faking it. But say it in a strong manner. Not I'm sorry. Like, and listen, all of us had to learn this. But be strong in your conviction if you are of the view that what you're saying is correct. Because half the time, people, it's like an energy. People feel more confident hearing it from somebody who feels or sounds like they themselves are confident in what they're saying. And they'll take your advice a lot better in that way. Sorry, my 5 cents worth.
And other people smell your fear.
Yeah.
Some of they are bloodhounds. They smell your fear.
If you believe in yourself, everyone else will too.
Exactly. So there's a lot to do with that confidence. You're right, Lili. I think, but also, if you don't get a chance to be in that situation, to learn what to do in certain situations, you won't build up that confidence. So it's also important to ask or request or get yourself the opportunity to be in those situations to actually learn how to present yourself and to speak up. So that's also important.
Kind of like
Um,
exposure therapy.
exactly. Margarita, maybe what would your advice be to um, to women or anyone who knows they have something valuable to say but is too hesitant to actually speak up? What would your advice be?
I think, I don't know if like, the only way that I would advise anything is that nobody is going to vouch for you but yourself. Everybody is either, they have their own careers, obviously, that they want to take care of. They have their own, what's it called? Like what they, their careers and their, what they need to do, their responsibilities. Nobody at this in a professional setting, nobody's ever going to check up on you and say, hey, how are you doing, what do you want to do, or does this work for you? I think that it's like you need to figure that out on your own, and you need to vouch for yourself. And yeah, if you're hesitant to speak up, I listen to this podcast, like I really like podcasts and audiobooks, and I saw somebody say before in this podcast, heard rather, that there was this technique of how can you get yourself more confident, especially like for women in very male dominated industries. How can you get yourself more confident with speaking up in important or large settings where you could very much be one, or only one of two, the minority in the group. And what the person on the podcast said was, you need to find allies. So whether that is a woman that is going to be there before the call, approach them and tell them, hey, so this is what I was thinking, blah 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 blah, what do you think? And once you kind of run that idea that you want somebody to back you up on, and you kind of get their buy-in,
Yeah.
or it doesn't also just have to be a woman. If there's nobody else there, it's somebody that you think that you connect with, or somebody that think is a kind person. And the more that you create relationships in the setting where you don't feel so comfortable, or where you feel like you have imposter syndrome or whatever, I feel that that kind of lessens the pressure, and that makes you more comfortable with speaking, because you know that people will back you up, or continue your train of thought, or say, oh yeah, that is a good idea, or jump from that and continue to evolve it. So yeah, maybe that is a more of a a more technical side, tips and tricks if anybody needs that. But I personally, I also find that very, calming. I'm quite an anxious person, so in a lot of times, I also have to speak most of the times with, these C-suite executives from really big companies that we are selling our software and selling our services to, and I'm probably one of the younger ones in the in the call. I am probably one of the only women, and I'm Asian. So there's also this this aspect of, oh, she's gonna be quiet, she's going to be
Yeah.
very soft spoken. So it's, for me, it's, yeah, I'm all those things, but I'm also trying to a little bit combat it and work against it and grow with myself. So I find these small things that I do before these events or these calls quite helpful.
That's
So
good.
get strategic, I would say, to make yourself comfortable.
Yeah, and I think what you said in the beginning, you must look after yourself. I think you're responsible for your own destiny. So if you want something, go for it. I think uh, also it's the way you do it and the way you ask and the way you speak. I think there's people who step on other people to get to the top, which is not the right way. But I think those allies where you can actually help each other, not just they help you, but you can help each other to actually get where you need to go. But I want to move to something that I think changes quite significantly as we grow. Um, so when we start out, if we look at success, so when we start out, success might mean getting a promotion or earning a big title, or being recognized by someone high up in a company or reaching a milestone. But definition of success, I think it evolves as we grow, and as we get older and as we move along our careers. Um, Maybe let's start with you, Margarita. How has that definition changed? Has it changed over time? Or is your definition of a success what it was when you started your career?
For me, let's say I started my career 11 years ago, 12 years ago. So I also don't think it's so long, but within that, let's just say, decade, I feel that it's changed quite a bit. At the start, it was like I was like a bull, like 100% on every single thing, give it your all, and at the end of the day, you're completely exhausted. You don't
Yeah.
have time for yourself, and you have no balance. And at some point, you're kind of like, yeah, well, why am I doing this if it doesn't give me peace and it doesn't kind of give me happiness, as cliche as that sounds? But it's also like, life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You need to
Mm,
you need to extend, and you want to enjoy all of those periods of your life and not finish everything, finish the fuel and the first how many years, right? So I think for me,
yeah.
what's changed is more of stopping myself from trying to do everything at 100% and picking and choosing specific things that I feel are what I feel that are my strengths and what I enjoy doing. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to get so, like, just for example, it doesn't feed me, it doesn't fulfill me to, study every single thing about AI. It's interesting, but to a certain point. I would rather build a community of users and meet people and talk to them about certain things and help them out and have that conversation with people. And so I
Yeah.
feel that's how I'm more focused versus somebody else, and that's because I choose and I know what I enjoy. So I think it would be focusing on the things that you enjoy, because those are the things that you're good at, and that's where you can get further, rather than just saying, I'll do everything. So
Oh, I like that. Lily, what did your success look like in the beginning of your career?
Listen, I'm quite similar to Margarita. I wanted to be recognized. I wanted people to know who Lili Nupen, the mining lawyer, was. And that was my aim. And I flipping put everything I mean, I worked ridiculous hours. I was at the office. I didn't have to be at the office, but I was at the office because that's what you did. You were at the office and you were pretending to file. But if you were the last one there, the first one there and the last one to leave, that, and kind of you were trying to make a name for yourself. And that is honestly what I believe success to be. And then you make a name for yourself. Okay. Yes, fine, within my area. So I really am not blowing my own horn here at all, but it really is. It's within your specific area. There are very few of us mining lawyers. Well, actually, yeah, there are very few of us mining regulatory lawyers in South Africa. And I can say that I can probably count them on my hands, but even fewer of us women. So you start to be recognized, and you start to be recognized in your area and in your sphere because you have put in the hard work. So listen, that is something that you can't, the stuff doesn't just come. Well, maybe to some lucky few, but flip, you put in hard work, and at least I did, to get to where we are at NSTV. But now, watching and thinking about what success is for me, in fact, Sam and I were laughing about it the other day. My very first associate at NSTV, a young guy who had come from Durban and from a small firm, and he had come across, I mean, if I say we were three of us in a little outside cottage, we had literally left the big firms, all three of us, and we had started NSTV in our outside cottage. And he came and he took a leap. He wanted to come to Joburg. He was a lawyer, and he got this job. And then for various reasons, he ultimately wanted to see what a big firm was like. So we opened doors, and obviously he went to a big firm. But my notion of success was, the other day, about 6 years later, I get a phone call from him. And he is now working at this unbelievably amazing company. It's not a law firm, but it's a company. He's an internal legal guy, but it is like it's one of those companies that all lawyers like really want to be advising, because they are acquiring, they're acquiring new businesses. They are, doing M&A, they're investing, they've got their own money. They literally are. And he comes and he says, Lili, I've been at the small firms, I've been at the big firms, and what I'd really love to do is I'd love to work with you again, and I'd love to work on this. And for me, watching people who have come through the system, even if they are still in my firm or still at NSTV, watching that and seeing them succeed, that fulfills me. That makes me so happy when I see other people doing well, by virtue of maybe having touched, me or any of our partners having touched them. Yeah, exactly. And them doing well. And then obviously I have to just add the balance part, Margarita, the whole notion of it's not all about work. It's about being able to thrive in all areas of your life. Yes, you will get 100% at the same time, because it's just not possible. But being able to realize that and move that around, I think that's what I deem success at this stage.
That's awesome. Simon, for you, is there what has changed for you as you've grown in your career?
So for me, it's just become more personal. It's not about another rung on the ladder. It's not about chasing the next promotion or the next law firm or the next big deal or the next client. It's not necessarily for me about what I've said or written, but it's about how I make people feel. I feel that that's success. If people can walk away after they've been with you and they feel lighter and they feel happier and they feel more caught and held and settled, be it a client, be it a colleague, be it someone who's coming to you for advice. But if they feel better after having been in my presence, for me, that's success. It's about enjoying the people I work with, the freedom to be myself professionally, which I'm very fortunate to be in a position to have. It's not just all about me. It's about teaching and mentoring and passing on the baton, we have a colleague who was literally on her way out. She had written her board exams 3 or 4 times, and she was on her way out, and she came and she told Lili and me, and we managed to catch her and say, no, we've got you. We're running this out with you. And I think the day that she passed her board exams, I felt like I'd succeeded more, and I was happier for her when she got that than I was the day I passed my board exams. And for me, that's success. Seeing someone come through those trenches and come out better because of it. And I think also because I'm raising 2 little daughters, I would love if they could just watch me and not just follow in my footsteps, but learn something from me and from the hard yards I've put in, and help them to form their own ideas about what a woman can be, what a woman can achieve, how much space she is allowed to occupy in our world. I'd really love for some part of my confidence to come through to them just from watching me and being with me. So that's success. For me, success is if others succeed around me, then I feel like I've succeeded. It's not about me anymore. Like Lili says, we've made it. We've ticked our boxes. We've chased those things. It's not that we're giving up. It's not that we're changing, that we're not becoming, that we're not as ambitious. I think it's just become more personal for us.
Yeah. I love how you say it's about how you make people feel. I think I always remember how people made me feel, not necessarily what they do or what they give you, what they say to you. It's how they make you feel. But also, I think what you say about your kids, your daughters, it connects good with actually the next area or the next item, which is influence. So for me, that's exactly where it comes in. Influence is not necessarily always what happens at work. As a mom, I think a lot about the example I set for my kids. And like yours, mine is still young, but I want them to grow up seeing that you can work hard, you can keep on learning, you can take the opportunities, and you can really build something meaningful. And I think that's what influence really is for me, is it's not always linked to being someone senior in a company or a certain job title. It's sometimes it's just simply the example that you set, and the confidence that you help someone else grow into, or the confidence is that you give someone else, or the way that you can make them feel.
Yeah.
And also the opportunity that you can create for people. That's really important. I don't necessarily always I want to help people, I want to support people, and I agree. For me, it's if I can do something for someone else, um, if it's someone at work, someone at home, the neighbor, my husband, my friends, my family, it really there's a feeling that I get, or a sense of satisfaction or happiness, or I don't even know what to call it, but that ultimate sense of um, maybe success or satisfaction. I'm not sure what to call it, but it really makes me happy inside. But let's go back to influence. I can get really passionate about that. Lili, what does influence mean to you when you take away the job title?
So listen, I mean, I think very interesting question, and I think we probably touched, well, Sam at least as well, and you in your recent in this discussion that you've had. It really is how you make people feel. And I was trying to think about, well, what does influence mean without a job title? And out of the blue, I had a phone call from a client this one that I was in the meeting with yesterday, with council. And she said to me, you know, you walk into, she was very nervous for the meeting. So was I. We were all very nervous for this meeting. It was a very contentious, like not an easy discussion that was going to be held. And she said, you walked in. She said, I immediately felt calm. He said, you opened your mouth, you spoke when you needed to, but you also spoke in a way that was not aggressive. You got your point across. You didn't have to shout and scream and be bullish. And, you also then made us around the table feel comfortable, and you referred to us and you asked us and you opened the floor for us to be able to say things without judgment, and to have our point put across. And I thought about that, and I thought, I guess that's influence. Influence when you're able to when you yourself are being, and again, it all comes down to authenticity. It's when you yourself feel that you are in the position that you should be in, that you believe in what you stand for, and I should say you stand for what you believe in that meeting or in that situation. You have your say, but then you also allow other people to have their says and feel comfortable, without judgment, to say and to be in these difficult situations. Listen, the areas we have chosen, all of us, and I can only just assume the people online as well. I mean, you're listening to this conversation because we have chosen difficult and challenging areas for our profession, and ones that are specifically male dominated. And women deal with things and approach things in a different way to men.
Different.
It's not better.
Definitely.
It's not worse. It's just different.
Different.
And if we can allow people, and I mean, the head of legal at Anglo, the previous Anglo, said, he loved working with the NSTV and us because we have a low AI index. And I said to him, what do you mean low AI index? And please excuse my language here, and you can beat me out if you need to. But he said, you have a low asshole index. He said, I like the fact that I can walk into a room, that you can draw the most complicated thing where I actually feel bad about asking the question, and you guys you draw the picture and you make me feel comfortable that I can ask these potentially not very overly complicated questions, but it's difficult for me. And I think, said in a long way, I think that is what influence is without a job title. It's just making people feel comfortable in their space.
Margarita, what do you hope people will remember about you working with you? Do you think how do you make people feel? Do you think?
Well, that's a good one, but also, yeah, I think if what do I want people to think about me? Sounds like I'm dying, but
No, not yet.
No, I know, I'm just kidding. No, but I think that I would want people to remember me as somebody that was low AI, as Lili said. And I think that, it's a specific warmth of working with me. But also, that warmth, you don't give it to everyone, because other people, can also create a very, negative relationship. But I think 90% of the time I would want people to remember me as someone that was, warm and very flexible. And I think, we're going back to authentic and letting people understand that there is no specific correct way of doing something. Whatever you feel you are comfortable with, that is the correct way, because you yourself will need to be the one that pushes, whatever you start until the end. So you have to get comfortable with your own voice, with the way, your own style of handling things, your own style of also creating a community. But yeah, I think that would be basically for them to remember that, be authentic and you can succeed. Obviously, like, do hard, work hard and all of those things, but be authentic to yourself, because that is when you will find, the things that you're strongest, and that's what's going to get you the furthest.
I love that. Sam, what do you want to leave behind?
So I think for me, if someone who's worked with me, if they can just walk away feeling more confident, more capable, more willing to back themselves, and perhaps more generous with the person coming in through the door after them, holding the door open for them. I think that would mean more to me. If they would be willing to speak another woman's name in a room where she isn't, where they would back her up, where they would put her name forward. Have you considered Claire to be a mediator? Have you considered Kaylee to be the counsel on this matter? Have you seen how capable and confident she is? I've recently had an experience like that that meant more to me than anything ever would. We have a counsel that we brief at Group 1, quite a senior counsel, still a junior, but he's a senior counsel. And I found out a month later that he was standing around a cricket field while his son was playing cricket with my husband's cousin's son. And he said to my husband's cousin, why haven't you ever given any matters or instructions to Samantha? And the cousin turned around and said, what do you mean? And this counsel said, well, she's an excellent construction lawyer, and I don't understand why you haven't briefed her. And because of that, we now have a new client. And it's not because of me. It's about a man who was willing to speak my name in a room where I wasn't. And I think if we can do that for other women, and we can champion them and we can sponsor them, I think that means a lot more. So if I can be remembered for doing that for other women and holding the door open for them, not rushing to get through that door first, and making the table bigger for them, knowing that there's always space at my table for one more. That's what I would like to be remembered for.
Yeah, I like what you said. Not rushing to get through the door first. I think that's amazing, to help someone, to take someone with you on the journey and not just running all by yourself to get in front. We are running out of time. I'm gonna skip a few questions, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. So I've got one question that I want to ask all three of you. If you could sit down with your a younger version of yourself for a few minutes, what would you tell her, Lili?
Oh gosh, hindsight. I would say try, again, and it comes down to be authentic. Try not to worry so much about what other people think about you, and rather just, you are enough. You really are enough as you. So be yourself. I think that's what I'd probably say.
That's good.
Sam, and you?
I think I'd tell my younger self to stop waiting until you feel ready. I don't think you're ever going to feel ready. You're never going to feel ready to put your hand up for a promotion. You're never going to feel ready to leave a law firm that's 120 years old and join one that's 1 year old. And look where we are now. You're never going to feel ready to get that puppy. You're never going to feel ready to have that baby. You're never going to feel ready. But life makes you ready. The opportunity makes you ready. So close your eyes and take that leap.
Yeah, because you don't know what ready is if you haven't been in that situation. So if you don't have a kid, you don't know what it is to be ready to have a child. So
Taking
I like.
notes.
Yes, Margarita, that one's for you. What would you say to that younger Margarita?
I think for me, the thing that I would say is that the community that you build will get you further than your CV. And
Agreed.
there is so much value in, connecting with people on a authentic level, not just BS, hi, the spiel, but it's really, even if they cannot help you, they can give you a new perspective. And, surrounding yourself with people that you can learn from. Maybe it might not be 100% in your profession, but it's, what risks did they take? Why did they do that? What opportunities did they take? How did that present it? How did they find that? And I think that's also something that I still continue to tell myself. Continue building your community, because that is what's going to stay with you. You're always going to be, moving your career, moving what you're currently doing, but those people are where you're constantly learning and how you create benchmarks for yourself. So you better pick wisely and, create a good one. So I think that's what I would tell myself.
Margarita, just to add to that very slogan, if we could have a slogan, is people over paper. So follow those people, connect with those people, network with those people, create those connections and relationships, because it's always people over paper.
100%. Yeah.
Definitely. So one last question before we'll go to audience questions. So I hope my influence, and it's similar to one of the questions that we have earlier, but just maybe one final sentence of advice, or even for women out there, or for anyone out there. I hope my influence will be remembered for. What would that be for you, Margarita?
I think for me, I hope that my influence will be remembered for maybe showing people that success and happiness does not occur in a straight line, and that, curves can also get you to that point, maybe even further, but you just have to be open to the opportunities. That was a long sentence, but yeah, that's my sentence.
And Sam, for you?
I hope my influence will be remembered for how many people got further because I was there. Because I think that is ultimately what her journey and her influence means to me. The journey can't be only about how far I got.
Awesome. Lili, finally.
I think mine would be that people or women in a male-dominated space, or women in general, just remember to stand up and stand out.
It's beautiful. Yes, thanks, ladies. I can't believe the hour is up already.
I could talk for another hour.
I know.
I could listen for another hour.
We might be all by ourselves by then, but yeah. Thank you so much, the three of you. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think there were valuable lessons and some amazing advice and just some perspective as well. As you said, Margarita, there's no one's journey. None of our journeys were the same. And there won't be any two journeys that will be the same, but I think we can learn from each other, and we can hold each other's hands and do this journey together. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.